What's up YouTube, Capital G here, talking about field spells in this video and why I believe that Konami is trying to unpower creep them and essentially fix them, make them a lot less powerful, and why I actually think that we're not going to see another amazing field spell for quite some time. I think that moving forward in the Vrain's era, field spells are kind of going to suck, and I don't think there's going to be one for a very long time where you first look at it and you're like, damn, that thing is absolutely broken, man. That thing is crazy. Automatic 3-of. I think Konami is really trying to get away from that, and I've been thinking about this over the past couple of days, right? You know, we had the Skyfang Brigade that was announced, and you looked at the monsters and you were like, man, those are all pretty good. Then you looked at the field spell and I just face palmed and I was like, oh my god, this card's fucking terrible. And I really started thinking about all the field spells that I had kind of reviewed over like the last couple of months, and I started thinking, man, people must just be getting sick of me being, you know, old bitter man Cap G, because I look at all these field spells like Trickstar, you know, Light Arena, and the new Skyfang Brigade field spell, and I'm just kind of like, man, all these cards fucking suck. Like, what is this? Why are all these field spells a lot weaker? And it kind of dawned on me like a couple of days ago, I think that this is 100% on purpose. I think Konami is trying to make field spells so much weaker because you guys know, and I don't really have to explain this, but I will, over the second half of the Art V era until the very beginning, the very tip of Vrain's, we just had a field spell epidemic. Field spells just took over the game. We had some of the most powerful field spells that we've seen in a very long time, and field spells, to me, they really just got to the point where they're so strong and they increase the consistency of your deck so much. There were so many archetypes where it's like you have to run three of the copies of the field spells for the archetypes. You guys could look at cards like Spiral Resorts, Trickstar Light Stage, the Union Hanger for ABCs, Dragonic Diagram. I mean, those are 4 cards where they all had to actually be hit in the OCG, with the exception of Trickstar Light Stage, which to me is actually kind of puzzling. Some people might not agree with this, which you're fine to disagree, but I actually believe that like Trickstar Light Stage is the best field spell out of the cards that I just named. But you saw Diagram get banned in the OCG. You saw Union Hanger get hit to 2. You just saw Spiral Resort get limited. Like, these cards are fucking amazing. Every single one of them has a built-in rota, and then a lot of them either do like these, you know, outworldly type effects where you can basically have an entire archetype like Spiral where, oh, can't target me, can't play Effect Veiler, can't play Lost Winds against my deck anymore. So many good cards like Breakthrough Skill, can't even play it against my archetype. Or you have these same field spells that kind of facilitate your win condition as well as you know, being a rota on activation. If you look at Light Stage, it does burn damage, which Trickstars obviously want to do. It locks down your opponent's back row, so there's less of a chance of you getting, you know, blasted by a Solemn Strike when you summon your Candino or your Lilybell and you try to use those monsters' effects. You look at the Union Hanger. That's a card that as soon as you summon one of your A, B, or C pieces, it adds another one to the to your back row, gives your monster a nice little layer of protection, and it puts you a lot closer to your boss monster than you would be without it. The point that I'm making is field spells for basically the last year and a half have basically taken over the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! They've dominated the competitive meta, and you haven't just seen Konami actually hit these cards, the field spells themselves, but it's gotten so bad in the TCG and the OCG that look what Konami had to do. They had to fucking limit terraforming in the OCG. They had to limit set rotation in the TCG. They have not just gone after the field spells themselves in the OCG and the TCG. They've even gone after the cards that get the field spells, because we're playing 3 copies of those as well. We're even in some cases running field spells that we can't even activate just to give your opponent that field spell so that we can get our field spells. Like, that's how big of a deal field spells really are. And to just take it towards another level, Konami even made another version of terraforming that was, you know, obviously supposed to be a weaker version, because I think that they realized, hey, even if we hit terraforming the 1, even if we hit the set rotation the 1, people are still going to play these cards because they're too fucking strong in the archetypes. And historically, if you've really followed the game, field spells for a very long time, especially the first 3 eras of Yu-Gi-Oh! Like during 5Ds, DM, and GX, they were borderline laughable. I know Elemental Heroes had a couple of decent ones, the Skyscraper cards, 1 and 2. Those were decent, but when you're talking about like actual like big impacts on competitive meta, it just didn't happen. You didn't really see any game-changing field spells where, you know, it was at the level of like half the players at a YCS are playing field spells or something like that. That really really didn't happen to where we started seeing field spells in the meta really until like Zexal. I mean, and that was actually just one small part of Zexal. You had what people like to call the Dragon Ruler spellbook formats, and obviously Dragon Rulers would play like Dragon's Ravine to search the Dragon Rulers out, and there was like the Dragunity Dragon Ruler build, and then you had the spellbooks which played like the Grand Tower, and Dragon Rulers were so powerful that, you know, they got every fucking thing around them banned. They got all the cards in the archetype banned, they got Dragon's Ravine banned, they got Super Rejuvenation banned, but outside of that, and you know, you can kind of put Chicken Game in there, but Chicken Game is a whole nother bag of worms because it just was, you know, used in like degenerate decks like Monarch Magical Explosion and whatnot. You really didn't see field spells make a huge impact on meta until like Art V, until Konami started putting fucking Rotas in every field spell and adding a whole bunch of other effects. Now, part of that was because back in like the super old days of Yu-Gi-Oh!, only one player was allowed to have, you know, a field spell on the field at a time. So it's like, do I really want to play this field spell to only have my opponent play theirs? And not only do they get a +1, but now they have all the control and whatnot. But now if you look at the way the game is and how consistent decks have gotten and how fast decks are, I think that Konami is really trying to address these field spells. And I don't know if you've noticed, but not only are they taking a lot of times like the Rotas out of these field spells, but if these field spells have Rotas in them, it seems like they come with these huge downsides. Like, you look at something like Spiral Resort, okay, I guess sending back a monster during my end phase, or I guess having the card blow up, that's sort of a downside. But even if you look at all the other ones like Diagram and ABC Hanger and Trickstar Light Stage, they're all just instant Rotas with no drawbacks. You look at some of the new field spells, you've got like the Elemental Saber deck, you can activate that card and it gives you a Rota, but then you don't get your battle phase for the next turn, and it's like, oh man, that's kind of a big deal in Yu-Gi-Oh! When you might want to try to end the game within the first 4 turns. If I keep on searching, am I never going to be able to attack my opponent outside of like that first turn? If you look at the Skyfang Brigade Rota, that Rota effect is pitiful. You have to give up your draw phase. Like, who the fuck wants to do that? And if you look at some of the other field spells that Konami has created, and I'm really talking about like since Circuit Break, it seems like a lot of them now kind of have like these really gimmicky, over-the-top effects that, yeah, they look really nice on paper, but they're really difficult to pull off. And it almost makes me think that not only is Konami going to start, you know, taking away the, all right, all of you motherfuckers are not going to get Rotas in your field spells, but it almost seems like they're trying to make field spells into these kind of gimmicky home run type cards. You look at the Skyfang Brigade field spell, and it has this really weird effect where if you have like 5 monsters on board, you get to blow up your opponent's entire field. It's like, okay, it looks kind of nice on paper, but like, you know, is it really all that good? Seems kind of difficult to get 5 monsters on field. I probably should already win anyways. You look at something like Goki Rematch, and that's a card that can let you summon, you know, 4 or 5 Goki monsters in a turn, but it has a really tough activation condition where I have to destroy 3 of my opponent's monsters in battle during that battle phase to be able to, you know, use that effect, or I have to destroy 3 monsters of theirs in battle before I can really use that effect. You look at the Mech Knight field spell, that's another one that has a little bit of utility in it. It has the standard 300 attack gain, 300 defense, and, you know, you can discard a Mech Knight to draw a card. A little bit of consistency there, but it also has that kind of really weird second effect, or I guess you could say third effect of like, you can banish a bunch of Mech Knight monsters, like 8 monsters with different names to, you know, basically destroy your opponent's entire hand and extra deck in it. It makes me think that Konami is going to start making field spells a lot more gimmicky, a lot more kind of home run cards than cards that are automatically no-brainers. We're playing them at 3 because it searches my entire archetype, and it inherently makes my deck a lot more consistent. Now, personally, I don't really like these kind of gimmicky home run effects built into my field spells where you have to have 5 monsters on the field and they have to be different levels and they have to have different names, and it has to be a Tuesday night at 7 p.m. while you're eating a cheeseburger and fries, and if you do all of that, you get to draw 8 cards and banish 30 cards from your opponent's deck. Like, this shit is just random. It feels like they're more anime-focused type effects, and they're never really going to come up in competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! I think Konami has to know this stuff, right? If you actually are in a position where you can achieve that condition, why the fuck fuck haven't you already won the duel anyways? That's why I didn't kind of like the effect that they built into the Skyfang Brigade field spell. It's like you have 5 monsters on the field to blow your opponent's field up, but then they don't take any more damage. Well, fuck, if you have 5 monsters, just win the duel. Jesus. But anyways, I understand why Konami also doesn't want what we have in the TCG, where every Spiral player ever runs 3 terraformings and 3 resorts, where every Trickstar player ever runs 3 copies of terraforming and 3 copies of light stage. Every single ABC player ever runs 3 copies of terraforming and 3 copies of Union Hangar, because it just gets mundane at that point. I mean, I'm at the level where I'm playing Unexpected Nightmare and my Altergeist deck because obviously it's good against pendulums, but even if it's not, there's probably a 90% chance whatever I duel against is going to be fucking running field spells. So at the worst, I can kind of, you know, hit the field spell in their deck. I feel like it kind of limits card design, or it limits card design in the sense that, like, if you look at Trickstars and you look at Light Arena versus Light Stage, there's no reason to ever run Light Arena over Light Stage because Light Stage is just so much better of a card, and I really think Konami is going to address this. If I was going to look at like really good card design for field spells, you look at some of the field spells I named and they're just too bad, and then you look at some of the cards that have been hitting the OCG in addition to like Trickstar Light Stage, and you say those cards are too good. I think like the Crawler field spell is a good healthy mix of balance and utility. Not only does it give you your standard 300 attack and defense for your Crawler monsters, but then it does 2 things. None of them are what I would consider overpowered, but they both kind of help the archetype do what it wants to do. One of them just lets you special summon one of your Crawler monsters and you get to like set it face down or in face up defense so that you can link summon, and then the other basically says if you run over my Crawler monster, I get to kill one of your monsters as well. Like, that's pretty fair. That's kind of balanced. Something like that, or the rocket field spell that's coming out of Extreme Force, where again you get the special summon from your hand. Also, if your opponent has way more monsters than you get the summon from your graveyard up to the difference. Like, that's a pretty fair effect. Maybe you get to get 2 monsters back so that you can get to Borreload a lot easier or something like that. So I think that this is kind of the direction Konami needs to take field spells in, but I 100% believe like getting all those free rotas and all the like overtuned field spells like Light Stage and Union Hangar and Spiral Resort, I think that that era is pretty much done. And I think that these field spells that we're seeing, that they're a lot weaker, is kind of that's kind of the first signal of it. So what do you guys think? Do you guys like where Konami is going with this, or would you rather just continue having the OP field spells? Because that's perfectly fine too. If you like the format where you run 3 terraformings, you like your light stages, you like your Union Hangars, that's perfectly fine. Let me know in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching. As always, subscribe if you have not already. Turn on that notification bell for daily videos.